Welcome to Conversational with Carrie Olsen, where we explore what it takes to build a voice acting career that's authentically yours. I'm your host, Carrie Olsen, voice actor and coach, and I'm here to help you transform your voice acting approach, both in the booth and beyond. Let's get conversational. Last week, we talked about the strategic value of being distinctly you and how leveraging your unique background can become your competitive advantage. Today, as promised, we're diving into the holistic voice actor, examining how your mind, body, and business practices work together to create a sustainable career. But with a specific focus on something that's been coming up consistently in my coaching sessions: perfectionism and how it impacts every aspect of your voice acting ecosystem. When we think about perfectionism, we often think that it only affects our output, the marketing emails we send, the auditions we submit, and the demos we create. But perfectionism is much more insidious than that. It affects your entire voice acting ecosystem. There's a dangerous myth in our industry that the perfect technique, the perfect equipment, or the perfect marketing strategy will suddenly make everything click. But that's not how sustainable success works. Perfectionism creates this unique brand of procrastination. You keep learning, you keep refining, you keep preparing, but you never actually launch. And this affects not just your business activities, but your mental well-being and even your physical health. So I see three distinct types of perfectionism in voice actors, or in really any type of aspiring entrepreneur. First, there's performance perfectionism. So this is obsessing over your output, obsessing over each take, thinking that everything needs to be flawless before you submit. And that type of thinking basically keeps you chasing a moving target. Because if you're anything like me, you listen back to a read that you did and you hear something you could have changed. And you change that thing and then you listen back to it later and you hear something else you could have changed. And so it becomes this cycle of really being dissatisfied with your output. And second, there's preparation perfectionism. This is believing that you need to master every aspect of voice acting before you can start booking work. Then there's presentation perfectionism. So this is how you present, not putting yourself out there because your branding or your website or your marketing materials aren't professional enough yet, or aren't slick enough yet, or aren't cohesive enough yet, or fill in the blank. So do any of these three types of perfectionism resonate with you? So here's what's fascinating and what might surprise you. The voice actors with the most sustainable careers are rarely perfectionists, or at least they found a way to overcome their perfectionism so that they can deliver. They're willing to put themselves out there with good enough marketing, good enough auditions, and good enough branding, and then they improve as they go. Now, this isn't to say by any stretch of the imagination that I'm advocating for sloppy work or bringing to the table something that's less than what you can offer or what's industry standard. Rather, this is about knowing yourself. So if you recognize within yourself the tendency to keep yourself from moving forward and to put obstacles in your own way that keep you from moving forward because you're waiting on kind of some arbitrary perfection to happen, then this message is for you. But if you're kind of just haphazardly throwing things together and maybe not taking the work as you should, I think the problem will kind of take care of itself naturally because you're not likely to see a lot of success if you aren't putting in the effort in the first place. The problem is when the quote-unquote effort becomes excessive and becomes a substitute for actually launching your business. So let's talk about how perfectionism impacts the physical part of your voice acting ecosystem first. So perfectionism creates physical tension, actual physical tension in your jaw, in your shoulders, in your neck, and in your vocal mechanism. So raise your hand if you've experienced this before. When you're obsessing over getting every syllable perfect, your body tightens up, and this tension translates directly into your voice, making it sound controlled rather than authentic and conversational. So there's a reason that clients and directors ask for a conversational tone, or what I'm seeing now is a lot of kind of proxy language for conversational. So maybe they're not using that word specifically, but they're spelling out what it means to them to hear a conversational read. And the reason they're doing that is because they hear many of us tightening up. They hear us trying to deliver that perfect read and ending up sounding unnatural as a result. Another aspect of your physical well-being that perfectionism has an effect on is your sleep. If you've ever found yourself thinking about an audition that you submitted over and over again, or mentally replaying what you could have done differently in a session or in an audition, then you know that this type of anxiety can affect your peace of mind and your sleep. And of course, your sleep directly impacts your vocal quality and your mental sharpness. The second element of your voice acting ecosystem is your mental well-being. And this is where perfectionism really does its damage. Perfectionism feeds imposter syndrome. You might be looking at other voice actors' work and thinking, well, my marketing isn't as polished as that, or my demos aren't as strong as hers. And so you keep refining what you have because you're comparing yourself to other people than focusing on what we talked about last time, which is leveraging who you are and what makes you unique, and really celebrating who you are and what your experiences are and how that plays into the way that you perform your voiceover scripts. And it can also lead to something we've talked about before on the podcast, which is the drift tendency. So if you're always comparing yourself to others and thinking, well, I will get more intentional about my marketing when my demos sound as great as that voice actor's, or when I've updated my website to look as amazing as that voice actor's website. And what can happen is, well, if you're not progressing toward that end, day after day, you get a little bit less excited and a little bit less motivated. But there's another mental aspect to perfectionism that's especially damaging for voice actors, and especially in this time now when authenticity is so paramount for voice actors. It kills your authenticity. When you're focused on perfection, you're not present. You're not bringing your unique voice and your unique perspective to the copy. Instead, you're just trying to get it right. And the irony, of course, is that clients aren't looking for perfect. They're looking for authentic, for conversational, and for human. And in fact, I've had clients ask for mistakes in my read before because they wanted to make sure that it sounded authentic and that it sounded human. So they actually said, hey, feel free to stumble over some of these words just so people know that it's a real person. One of the most powerful mindset shifts I've made in my career is reframing how I view perfect. Instead of focusing on technical perfection, I focus on perfect service. How can I perfectly serve this client's needs? How can I perfectly embody this message that they want to convey? This takes the shift off of me and puts it where it belongs, on the client and on the audience. And one side benefit to this reframe is that it kind of gives me a hack, because if I can logically tell myself, tell the perfection loving side of me that, hey, Carrie, the only way to deliver a perfect read in this situation is for you to get out of your head. And so that helps to give me permission to start having fun again. So if I find myself too focused on, I need to book this job, or I want to nail this read, then the logic piece can come in and say, well, Carrie, if you want to nail the read, then stop thinking about nailing the read. And so at that point, I can step outside the booth, shake it out a little bit, maybe do some jumping jacks or some silly vocal exercises or something, so that I can then approach the script with renewed energy and not thinking so much about nailing the read, but more about having fun so that I can serve the clients, serve the message that's being conveyed, and also give the audience something fun and interesting to listen to rather than something that sounds overly rehearsed or overly calculated. And then the third leg of our voice acting ecosystem, after your physical body, your mental well-being, is your business framework. And this is where perfectionism causes the most visible damage, but it's often rooted in the physical and the mental aspects that we just discussed. So here's the shocking truth. Perfect marketing often performs worse than authentic, imperfect marketing. So I'm going to say that again. Perfect marketing often performs worse than authentic, imperfect marketing. Why is this? Because people connect with people, not with polished marketing materials. They want to hear your unique voice, your unique take, not a sanitized corporate version of you. And this is something that I see when I'm teaching marketing, because my approach is very much about first finding who you are so that you can then present who you are, whereas some other marketing programs I've seen focus more on the message first. Here's the strategy, here's the tactic. And the problem with that is if you adopt the perfect marketing strategy, but there's no human behind it, then it becomes an imperfect marketing strategy because it's not as impactful as something that's more human and organic. Aspiring for perfect is the enemy of done. And in business, done beats perfect every time. And even if done doesn't perform as well as you hoped it would, at least you learned something and you can go back and try again and iterate. Think about it this way. If you spend 3 months perfecting a marketing email, instead of sending 10 good enough emails in that same time period, then you've missed out on multiple opportunities to connect with potential clients. And I need to say again that this is not about sending sloppy emails, but it is about recognizing where the success in marketing comes from so that you have something unique to present when you do send your marketing emails, when you do start to share your brand with the world. Perfectionism also shows up in how voice actors structure their time. So instead of breaking marketing down into manageable chunks, you can see it as one massive task that has to be done perfectly. And so then you end up putting it off until you have enough time to do it right, which of course never happens. One system that has been transformative for breaking the perfectionism cycle in my business is time blocking. This is especially crucial for marketing, which can feel overwhelming if approached as one massive task. So instead of just sitting down to market my services perfectly, I break it down into specific time blocks for each element. Research, writing emails, sending outreach, following up, and tracking results. So let's walk through what this looks like in practice. I set aside specific blocks of time, usually maybe 60 to 90 minutes, but it can be 30 just depending on what you can do. And it's dedicated to one aspect of marketing. During a research block, I might identify potential clients in my target industries. During a writing block, I'll craft personalized outreach emails. During a sending block, I'll actually send those emails and track them. This granular approach accomplishes two things. It makes marketing less intimidating since you're focusing on just one element at a time, and it ensures that nothing falls through the cracks. I've created a perfectionism breakthrough worksheet that helps streamline this process, which you can download at carrieolsenvo.com/EP6 or by texting VOICE to 55444. Now let's talk about the practical techniques to break free from perfectionism in all three areas of your voice acting ecosystem. First, for physical perfectionism, try this exercise I call deliberate imperfection. So next time you're in the booth, intentionally make a mistake, stumble over a word, start stuttering on purpose, then keep going. Feel what it's like to be imperfect and still complete the take. This might sound counterintuitive, but it trains your body and mind to stay relaxed, even when things aren't perfect. The goal isn't to submit auditions with mistakes, of course, but to break the physical tension cycle that perfectionism creates. Second, for mental perfectionism, I recommend the Progress Over Perfection journal. So this is a daily practice where you write down 3 things. 1 imperfect action that you took today. 1 way this imperfect action moved you forward. And 1 thing you learned that you can apply tomorrow. This practice retrains your brain to value progress over perfection and helps create momentum. And this doesn't even have to be a voiceover related thing. It could be that you went to the grocery store without a list, or you wrote some thank you cards on plain paper because you'd been waiting to go to the store and buy fancy thank you note cards before you were going to write the cards, but you always forget to buy the note cards. So you just decided to write them on the paper you have at home and you sent them. This practice retrains your brain to value progress over perfection and helps create momentum. Third, for business perfectionism, implement the 15-minute marketing rule. Set a timer for 15 minutes and commit to completing one small marketing task, researching a potential client, drafting an email, or making a small update to your website. When the timer goes off, you're done. No tweaking, no second guessing, just move on to the next task. Now let's talk about how these three elements, physical, mental, and business approaches to perfectionism, work together to create a more sustainable voice acting career. So remember our three-legged stool metaphor? Toxic perfectionism weakens all three legs simultaneously. That's why addressing this type of perfectionism requires a holistic approach. You can't just focus on breaking business perfectionism if you're still physically tensing up in the booth or mentally berating yourself for every small mistake. The key is integration. Here are three strategies I recommend using to ensure that these elements work together harmoniously. So first thing is set realistic expectations and set them across all three areas, knowing that having good enough expectations and meeting them is better than having amazing, perfect expectations that you never get around to meeting. Second, celebrate imperfect action. When you hit send on your marketing email or when you submit that audition, celebrate it. Even though it's not flawless, celebrate it because it reinforces the behavior and builds up that momentum. And then third, focus on the step right in front of you. We break down the overwhelming process of building a brand into manageable weekly steps that anyone can implement no matter where they're starting from in their business. What is possibly my favorite thing so far that I've developed in my 10 years of coaching voiceover is the legacy branding framework. Legacy branding is built on the idea that your unique experiences, perspectives, and skills are already enough, more than enough. You don't need to create a perfect, polished persona. You just need to leverage what already makes you fascinating. When you're grounded in a strong legacy brand, perfectionism loses its power. You're no longer trying to be perfect. You're just being authentically you. You're embracing who you are and what that brings to your business and to your clients. And that's something you can do right now without any additional training or preparation. In my Legacy Branding Mastermind, we focus on three core pillars. First is authentic storytelling. So we leverage your unique background and experiences to connect with clients on a human level. And by the way, doing it in a way that feels authentic to you so you don't feel spammy or scammy or anything like that with your marketing. And third, sustainable systems. Creating marketing and business practices that don't require perfection to be effective. This framework has opened up creativity in the voice actors who've gone through the program before, not because they suddenly became perfect, but because they embraced their authentic, imperfect selves. As we wrap up today, I want to emphasize that voice acting success isn't about perfection. It's about progress, authenticity, and consistency. Your physical well-being, your mental state directly impact your voice acting success. Perfectionism can damage all three areas, but addressing perfectionism holistically can transform your entire voice acting ecosystem. Next week, we'll dive deeper into the legacy branding framework. We'll explore the three pillars I just mentioned and show you exactly how to create a voice acting brand that attracts your ideal clients without having to be perfect. Until then, I encourage you to download the Perfectionism Breakthrough Worksheet at carrieolsenvo.com/EP6 or by texting VOICE to 55444. Start identifying where perfectionism is holding you back and commit to taking one imperfect action in each area of your voice acting ecosystem this week. Thanks for being a part of the conversation today. I'm Carrie Olsen, and if you'd like to stay connected, text VOICE to 55444 for exclusive resources. Until next time, remember your voice is unique. Your path should be too.